Hello, everybody, and welcome to the UnWokable podcast. I'm your host, UnWokable, and I'm joined today by Michael Grande of Oklahoma, Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment, parent liaison for that group. Thank you, Michael, for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we're here to talk about a story that we visited with Jenny White with yesterday about a transgender teen charged with violently assaulting two female students in an Oklahoma high school bathroom. And, you know, this story broke yesterday. Well, it broke really on December 4th with Jenny's article in the blog for Rope. And Michael, she says that you have been pretty much on the front lines of this situation. So I was just wondering if you could give us, if we could start with some background on this, how this all came about, how you got involved.
Yes, sir. Well, I first of all, I'm just a dad. I ran for school board a year ago. I have 5 kids, and 3 of them are in the Edmond School District, and I just felt it was my duty to run for school board. And unfortunately, we lost that race. But during that time, we created a very, very large parent group, not just from my school district, but the entire city, and even just outside of that, other people that we met and came together with. And so it just during that campaign, I met with hundreds and hundreds, probably 1,000 families. And the overall arching, one of the overall arching, major concerns just constantly was transgender boys in the bathrooms in the school district. Mm-hmm. And I'd never even heard of it. I mean, it was never even on my radar up to that point. And I just heard parent after parent after parent with that issue. And then also, and this was well before 6/15. This was back December, January, February of last year. Mm-hmm. So one of the parents in my group, they went ahead and we talked about it, and we sent in an email to the board because we went to the website just to look at the bathroom policy to see if, there is some type of policy or regulation or guidance or something from the school district to tell parents kind of what is going on or how to handle the situation or if something happens. So there was absolutely nothing there. So we sent in an email to the board member just basically stating, what is your position on this issue, the transgender boys in the girls' bathrooms? And, if it is a policy, we can't find it anywhere on the website. And, if it is an actual policy or it does happen, how is that handled? Basically mm-hmm. is, what we asked. So right after that, we got, and this was probably, I'd say, March of last year, okay, or March of this year, earlier this year. So we got a response back, and it was basically the school board member that said, hey, we support all students, which, obviously we all support all students. There's, no one's against that. But that she said that, this is, they support the gender identity students in the bathrooms. And she goes, it's been a practice for 10 years. They've done it for 10 years. Okay, that's wow. What she said in the email to us. And she also said that they've never had any issues. And as far as, there's never been a complaint, there's never been any issues, and their practice hasn't caused any type of distraction as far as they know. So that was the basic premise of the email. So we emailed back and said, you're telling me that for the last 10 years, you've never had a single complaint about a boy being in the girls' bathroom, and just a couple things like that. And then we never got mm-hmm. a response back from that. So,
and who is this again?
Well, we emailed a school board one of the school board members. Okay. This was a parent, and I'm not going to disclose her name because
I was talking about who you were emailing.
Yeah, so we emailed the school board, her representative in the school board. This was the response back to us.
Gotcha. Okay.
Was that this is common practice, mm-hmm. for 10 years now, and there's no issue. Okay. So that just became part of our campaign was, we wanted to make sure that our girls were protected and safe, yep. And we didn't want to, make anyone feel like they weren't part of the school district. I mean, if they want to, we need to have separate bathrooms for boys and multigender and girls. But we, ultimately we want to protect our girls.
Yeah.
So that's how the whole thing got started. So we ran a race, we lost. Fast forward to now. So that's kind of the backstory of how I got involved, how, this issue came about. This issue has always kind of been just, no one's ever said anything. So inside of our big parent group, one day, one of the moms, because I'm kind of the catch-all for everything, because I'm a guy that stood up, for values and morals and standards in our school. So now anytime that someone has an issue, they text me, they're like, hey, Michael, this happened, or this is happening. What can we do about this? I'm just kind of the catch-all guy. So a member of our group had sent me a text and said, hey, did you see this? Have you heard this? And this was literally probably October 27th, 23rd, right around there.
Okay.
So I'm not 23rd, the 27th, 28th, 29th, right around there. A couple days after this incident. And it was a post that
and the incident was October 26th.
October 26th. So this was a post that was in a private group in another city, but some of our member groups are in this group. So they sent it to me and said, hey, have you heard of this? And I said, I not heard one single word. I said, let me get on some people that I know that are highly involved in Edmund Memorial High School. Let me just ask them, if they've heard anything or if their kids have heard anything. So I reached out to quite a few parents, and all of them said, we have never heard of that. I don't even think that's possible. I don't think there's no way that could have happened. And I mean, it was just completely, it was just silence.
They were in the dark. They were in the dark.
Complete. Yeah. I even had parents in our group that was like, they even said, Michael, your people think you're lying when you said that. I said, I don't know. I said, I'm just asking, questions if that's the case. So a couple days later, so it's November 4th. And I told some people, I said, I'm just going to find out if there was something, because at that time, I don't even think it was known that it was transgender or anything. It was just, there was an assault. And I asked my wife, I said, don't you think it's odd? Because we have so many kids in school. We've got kids in high school, middle school, elementary. We get alerts and notices and emails and robocalls on everything. I said, don't you think if there was an assault in the high school that actual charges were filed of, assault and battery and disorderly conduct? Don't you think they'd at least say, hey, we had an incident today and the police came out, it's all handled. I said, don't you think they'd say that? And so I talked to everybody that I had contacts with in that school, and there was no communication. So I sent in an open records request to the school on November 4th, and they got back to me on November 8th. And I basically said, I just asked, I said there, between this time frame, I didn't know the day or anything. I just said, between this time frame here, there was an assault at the school. I'd like a copy of the incident report, maybe police report, or any other, information you can provide me. So the email that came back to me was from Susan Parkschlepp, the communications director of the district. She sent me an email. She said, yes, there was an assault. Police were called, charges were filed. It happened in the women's bathroom, and it was on October 26th. She gave me all that information. I didn't know that information. Okay. So she provided me that. And she said, if you want, she goes, I can't provide you any more information. That is all juvenile record. She goes, you're going to have to contact the arresting party or the investigating party, which is the Edmond Police Department, and get a police report. Okay. So we went right down there and got a police report. And that's the police report that Jenny has, that has been published, that everybody's using, to go on from there. And it's pretty obvious. Yes, the police report's heavily redacted. All the pronouns are redacted. And I guess that's maybe common practice in some of these juvenile cases from what I've found out. I don't think there was.
Let me speak to that for a second, because I've reached out to some of my, I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and they say it can be a department by department policy, but they've never seen themselves the pronouns of a student redacted. They've seen names, and a lot of it can go through the legal counsel for whatever police department, depending on how big the department is. But, I'm talking to somebody who's written a ton of reports, a ton of police reports, and they have never seen a pronoun redacted from a police report. So I just want to point that out. Now that's not Edmond. That's not Edmond Police. I'm actually reaching out to them in the process of doing that now to figure out if they have a policy on that, because I think it would be very telling to see if that is a standard policy or has been a standard policy, and if we could iron that out a little bit, because it could go towards intent, towards whether or not they want to come out. Yeah.
I will send you. I was just in contact with the city attorney this morning because I went in to get another report, because I thought maybe that with some of this stuff online, like with the Reduxx article, it seemed like they had some more information than was on the original report that we got. So I went in to get another. I wanted to say, hey, I want whatever report you guys gave out to the media, because it seems like there's more information in there, which is probably just sensationalized, I guess. So anyway. Come to find out, they denied my request to even get a report.
Really?
So yeah. So I'll send you that whole email string, and you can see the and what they're quoting and the statutes.
Is it because
and that.
Is it because it's an open case? Is that the reason they gave?
No. It was. Well, I can probably just pull it up here. Let me see real quick.
Well, it's, so they gave out supposedly, or the indication is that they gave out information to Reduxx, which is a Canadian media group, right? And you as a parent on the ground here locally, having kids in the district, having run for school board, they're not willing to give you that information.
Yeah. And I stated that. I said, I'm a parent, I'm a taxpayer, I have kids in the school district, I should be entitled to this report. So we'll see, but I can't go through that right here.
Yeah. It's fine. You can send it to me and I can go over it later. But you didn't get the information that you asked for, the most recent information you asked for.
Yeah. Okay. So I just thought maybe there was another one that was out there. So I just wanted to get one that was maybe more thorough or less redacted to get the true story of what actually happened, because I don't think we know exactly what happened, but the overall circumstance is, from my time in the campaign and meeting all these people, this is an obvious issue that's been going on, that's been admitted to by a school board member, to us in email, in writing, at some point.
Well, and now in Reduxx.
Yeah.
So
at some point, these emails are going to come out. But so just going forward from there, Jenny wrote the article, and it's just kind of taken off from there. But in the meantime, so let's rewind a little bit. I was actually at the school board meeting in August when they put the policy in. Mm-hmm. The actual 615 policy from the governor, that's signed under emergency status from the governor. So they adopted the policy there, which I remember thinking to myself when I was looking at the agenda item, because it just said misuse of bathroom, and it gave the policy number. I was thinking 5540 or something.
Right.
So at that time, I didn't even really think twice about it until, this stuff really started happening. And I was talking to a lot of people. I was like, hey, did you ever get any kind of confirmation information, back to school packet or, website link or anything that said, hey, these are this is the law, this is the new rules, this is how, these are the expectations of the bathrooms for this year going on for, parents, for students, for faculty, for anyone else that comes in this building. I said, did anyone ever receive anything like that? And because I know I didn't, and I've got kids in, 3 different schools over there, and we never received any kind of guidance from the district. And that's kind of the next big issue in this whole thing is there's no disclosure. Okay, so they adopted a state policy, state mandated bill. Right. They adopted the policy, but from there, how are parents even supposed to know anything about it? How are the kids supposed to know? How is anyone that has to do anything with these schools supposed to know anything that, hey, these are the new rules. This is how it works. This is what happens if you get caught doing it. Here's, the consequences, and here's, remediation through, whatever reporting system.
Right.
None of that. To me, that is the absolute, there's no transparency in this deal. There doesn't seem to be any kind of accountability. And all we want is a safe place for these girls to be able to be in school.
Right. Well, and I think the issue here is, just to make a connection, you said that you weren't aware that the bathroom policy had existed in the way that it did for 10 years. And then they changed the policy. So if you weren't aware, most parents weren't aware. That's a safe assumption, right? And now they've changed the policy, and parents aren't aware that they've changed the policy. So there was no communication as far as them, having adopted what the state had done. So unless parents were really plugged into the issue, they wouldn't have any idea
Well,
they wouldn't have any idea to be looking out for it, or that there could be an issue in the future.
yeah. Well, I don't
Right.
even know if parents being plugged into it even knew anything about it.
Right.
Honestly, because I'll tell you what, you can do this right here. You can show it on screen. If you go to the Edmond Public Schools website, just edmondschools.net, there's a search bar right there. You can just type in bathroom, and guess what? Nothing comes up. A
Okay.
single policy about COVID from the 2020-2021 school year or something. That's a back to school policy. That's the only thing that comes up. So even if you were specifically looking for it, you couldn't even find it on the website. And I had to even contact the school's communication director, Ms. Parkschlepp, and I said, hey, I'm having a problem even finding this policy on the website. Where is it? And she gave me the link to that specific policy that was adopted, adopted back in August. And then I guess at some point it was revised in October.
Yeah, so they adopted it on August 1st and revised it on October 3rd, according to what they had said. But I think there was some discrepancy here. You used Wayback Machine and you found some sort of discrepancy in the URLs. Can you explain that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I started. I have some other history with a lot of open records requests with the school and documents they provide and things like that. So I just like to ask questions about, when these things actually came into existence, how parents knew or how parents are going to know that this is a policy. So when she sent me that link, I said, and I couldn't find it on the website, first of all. So I couldn't find it until, she sent me the link, and then I followed the path and I did see where it was. It's kind of embedded in there pretty deep. There's no way a parent looking for it,
virtual fine print kind of thing.
It's hard enough to find it if you're looking for it, let alone just going through the website. So I said, hey, I want to see if this policy was adopted in August. I want to see when they actually posted it for possibly a parent to read or be informed of, this policy change. Well, you go in, you put that specific document in, and it was the first time it was crawled was like October 9th, 8th or not October, December 8th or 9th.
December 8th.
One of those days. That was the first time it's crawled. So, I mean, it could have been posted there maybe 30 days before. I mean, I could see a crawler taking a little bit of time, but it was, here's the thing about it. It was crawled, and then 2 days later, it was hit again. So, was it actually revised that second day? Was it posted the first day, revised the second day? I mean, I do think they maybe honestly uploaded it at some point in October, because you can look at the path of the file and it does have somewhat of a date contained in there, which looks like it may be October. But either way.
Well, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. They could have updated, because there's metadata for a file, and then there's data for post uploads, and web crawlers respond to changes in websites. So the fact that the web crawler didn't go looking for it, so to speak, until December is an indication that it could not have been posted until December, which was well after the incident in late October. Right. Yeah. So, and that's the kind of issue that we're concerned about here, because Jenny and I uncovered yesterday that, well, according to the law, a parent has to make a complaint about this situation within 15 days of the incident.
To who do they make the complaint to? The school board, the state board, or
the State Board of Education. And so if the onus is on the parents, and this is the problem, is that if the school, first of all, did they even let the students know, who are the ones that have to abide by the new policy?
Yeah.
Because, if you have a kid in the high school, well, and you don't tell them that this policy has changed there, and this has been a policy that boys can go into girls' bathrooms for 10 years, they're not going to act any different if you don't tell them.
Yeah.
Number two, obviously nobody told or communicated with the parents. And now it seems that the school has a vested interest in not having this reported to the State Board of Education, because if they were allowing this activity to happen, that was a violation of state law. They can lose 5% of their funding, and they can have their accreditation docked. And so I think a big issue that Jenny and I uncovered yesterday was, okay, parents need to be empowered, but they can't be empowered if they don't have the knowledge of what the issue is and what the policy is. And administrators and teachers are mandatory reporters already. So the law needs to state specifically that if an incident like this happens, there needs to be a mandatory reporting from the school board, right?
Yeah.
From the school board to the State Board of Education within the 15-day period. Because otherwise, we are now in a situation where if we report this to the school board, it may be past the 15 days where they can actually do anything about it. That's a large part of the issue here.
Yeah.
And that to me is very suspect, because if you're not putting out the incident, when normally, like you had said, if something happens at the schools, you get a flurry of messages about, whether it's sometimes there are threats to the school, sometimes there's other incidents that are reported, but this one just went completely off the radar.
Yeah, it did.
And I know you as a parent, have got to be concerned about that. And that when you combine that with the fact that the document or the police report was redacted of genders, right? This smacks of or smells of a possible collusion issue here, trying to protect, from a PR standpoint, both the city of Edmond, because the police are involved now, right? The city of Edmond and the school board, right? And the school district of Edmond. I mean, is that a concern for you?
Well, definitely. Ultimately, as a parent, we want to know what's happening in these schools. I mean, it's bad enough, it's hard enough to even get into the schools, to have lunch with your kid, in elementary school, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's just not like it used to be. Mm-hmm. And then to have safety issues, drug issues, whatever it is, there needs to be at least some type of disclosure, in this, let's just take this incident, with the Memorial bathroom incident. I mean, all the school had to tell the parents was, hey, there was an assault that happened today in the girls' bathroom, and we have partnered with the city and the police department, and we have done investigation, and your kids are safe and there's no issues. Right. It's been taken care of. I mean, that's all as parents we want to know is, hey, something did happen. But the biggest thing to me is just how quiet and just this thing has been under a lock and key, from the beginning. And I talked to teachers even that I made contact with, and they had no idea. I mean, they're
really?
Like, Michael, no.
The teachers didn't know.
Well, the ones I talked to, that had, whether they had friends in that district or, what, I was like, have you heard anybody on, the inside say anything about this? I mean, no one knew anything. Well,
see, that's an interesting thing, because at least, I mean, if you talk to a teacher in the high school itself, I guarantee you there would be, on a normal basis, if there's that kind of incident, teachers are going to know about that. Because teachers talk to each other, number one. And the other part about this is that this is our concerns here about a possible cover-up or a possible, lack of transparency, let's put it that way, are not unfounded, considering what happened in Loudoun County. And that was this was a serious assault in Edmond, but that assault in Loudoun County was even more serious. And we now have evidence that was kept from parents all the way up and to the point of arresting a father like yourself, whose daughter had been assaulted, even worse than this incident. And they arrested him because he was basically trying to bring that to public light, at a school board meeting. So I am very concerned that there's been a culture cultivated at these school districts that is, first of all, teachers and administrators are painting themselves as victims of, we're under attack, right? And they use that as a moral justification to keep parents in the dark when something they are allowing to happen, right? But administrators through policy or whatever, or through not informing kids, of what the policy change has been, or with parents of what the policy change has been. They're allowing this to happen. And then when something happens, it's okay, let's go cover it up. Instead of, hey, we need to actually bring this to light because it shows why you came to the school board before you even ran in the first place, why you actually brought this situation up in the first place. And it seems to be political. It seems to be that they have an ideological bend, and they believe that it's morally good to, be inclusive, even to the point of letting biological males be in the bathroom with females alone. Where's the common sense here, man? I mean, what can we do? What do you think we can do with this situation moving forward?
Well, I think we're just going to have to keep pressing these issues as parents. We can't disengage and just go back to allowing the kids to just be, not the kids, but allow these districts to just have free reign over our kids. We've got to, stay the course and continue to just ask for transparency, ask questions, want to be involved, just not put up with the district acting like they are the authority over us parents. Parents, we have the authority over our kids. And this is the same district. I don't know if you're aware. This is the exact same district that tried to force vaccine passports on kids, a year ago. Then we the parents had to get together, sue the school district. We won that lawsuit, which is now sitting in state Supreme Court because the school does not want to allow the parents to be the authority over their child's health care when it comes to, what's happening at school. So it's just one of the things. We just can't let off the gas. This is just another thing that, hey, if a single parent just didn't keep asking some questions about something, this would have never came to light. Had I just said, okay, yeah, it's probably no big deal, and I didn't file a records request, and then we didn't go down and get the police report, no one would have ever known this happened, and that girl would have been a victim, or however it would have came, been for her and her family. I mean, it just would have been swept on. I think it's a case of these these school districts themselves. They want to be able to handle everything, within the school district itself. They don't want any outside. They don't want parents, in the equation. They don't want the law in the equation. They don't want the community to know what's going on. They want to handle everything in-house, so it's all neat and clean, and they keep their, it looks like they're, one of the best school districts in the country, blah, 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 while our kids are suffering, because they're not there for academics. They're there, for all these social programs.
Right. Well, and I think, first of all, they have to remember that, guess what? Parents are the school district, because, what I mean? That is literally the case. The advantage of having a public school, right, is that they're subject to the will of the voter and the constituent, which is the parents sending their kids to the school and paying the tax dollars to fund the school. And so really, if you think about it, the buck stops with the parents when it comes to being informed. So do you think it would be beneficial to see the legislature enact something that it requires administrators and parents to report these kinds of incidents, not just to the State Board of Education, but to the community, in terms of, I understand that can get sticky in certain situations, but it could have been your daughter in there, right? And which brings me to my other, and I think you already answered that. So have you tried to make contact with the parents of the girls that were assaulted?
Yeah, I've said the guys that made the initial post, I tried to contact them just because if they were going to go the route of a lawsuit, I wanted to be able to provide them some of those emails and that evidence from the past that shows it was already kind of a common practice, going on within the school district, and it was accepted and there wasn't any issues. So I did want to, I don't need to interview them. I just wanted to help them if they wanted some additional help or, whatever.
But you haven't spoken with them?
No, I have not. Okay. I have not been able to locate anybody or talk to anybody or contact or anything like that.
Well, and that's their prerogative, obviously. But I think what the issue comes down to is these parents need to be aware of the policies, number one. Number two, the administrators need to be responsible, as well as the parents, for reporting incidents, if not to the public, at least to the State Board of Education when you have something where the police are brought in, right? Because then you've involved the city government. Then you're outside of the district, right? When you're bringing in law enforcement, you're talking about the city of Edmond, not just the independent Edmond Independent School District, right? And so we're finding some loopholes here in what I think was a pretty good bill, trying to help solve this problem. But the legislators need to be aware of these loopholes and what they can lead to, because what happened here is the school district did not let the parents know. And so the parents,
well, not the parents, they didn't let the community know, but yes, they did. They probably didn't let, I can't speak for the school district, so I can't say whether they let the parents know the proper channels for the grievance, or whatever it's called.
Well, if the policy's not posted, you know what I mean? If you're not even seeing the policy, then how would you know how to actionably inject the policy? You know what I mean? So it's kind of logical. And well, let me ask you one last question. I know you got to go, and thank you so much for your time.
But before you ask that question, I do want to go back real quick.
Yeah,
Before you asked the question about the girls, because we were just talking about this. Literally, it's so funny you just kind of started to mention this, but we were just talking within our group just recently about the need. There needs to be some type of awareness program that's just kind of a real top level, that says, hey, there was this many drug incidents that happened this year, or this many, police had to be called out to the school X amount of times. Or, we as parents, it'd be nice to kind of have a scorecard system like that just is a real top level, no detail to it other than, hey, this is the amount of incidents that happened in the school. That way we can, how are you going to make anything better if you don't have a track record of what's really happening? And there's no way to keep them accountable if you don't know, because it's all, under the rug. So it's so funny you kind of brought that up a minute ago, because we were just talking about, we need some type of bill or something that actually forces a higher level accountability disclosure process, for these schools.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I think again, if we're talking about transparency here, that means that the district needs to offer up the data. They need to offer up the information without being forced, through what takes, I'm sure, an ample amount of time to get all of these records and all of this information. Transparency means, okay, no, that means you can just look and see, right? It's not, I have to file this paper and I have to file this paper and I have to call you and you're going to refuse my, my requests and things like that. No, this needs to, true transparency means it needs to have ease of view, I believe. And they do that in everything else. You can go on and look at, here's when this game is, here's when this event is, here's when all this is. Well, I'd say the safety of your kids is more important than, when the basketball game is.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for being so involved and being, at the forefront of this fight, because you're doing a lot of work that a lot of parents don't have time to do. Right. Yeah. There are parents who work 2 or 3 jobs just to put food on the table. And so they send their kids to school and they expect the kids to be safe and to not deal with something as asinine as letting a boy in the girls' bathroom. This is something that was eminently avoidable.
Yeah.
If this would have happened in the hallway, I venture to say the girl wouldn't have been knocked out. Right. Because usually there's a teacher. Teachers walk around the hallways before and after school. But what they can't do is go in the bathrooms and just stand there. So this is a different kind of place. Well, but my last question to you is, how would you advise parents on, until we get this new checklist, this new transparency tool that you're suggesting, which I think is a great idea? What advice would you give to parents about getting records and that process of starting that?
More than anything, I think people just, and you said it earlier, people just really need to realize that these schools work for us. They're our schools. We pay for them. These are our computers. They're our records. And I want to give you, just before I go into the record process, I want to give you just a little caveat that's happened in Edmond. And this is off the subject, but it has to do with the record requests. In Edmond, when I first started making record requests, which goes back to COVID and the policies and their experts and, all their information that they were putting out, I just wanted to know, basically, hey, who are these guys? Who's your experts? Where's this data coming from? I want to see the studies, that you're looking at. I want to see what you're looking at to make these decisions to lock our kids down, shut these schools down, go A/B schedule, force mask, try to, push the vaccine, the whole 9 yards. I said, I want to just see what you're seeing to make your decisions. So come to find out, I started doing open records requests. Well, I really wanted to see, because the board members are ultimately responsible. They have all the power in school. The superintendent works for the board. It's not the other way around. So the board members at most schools have a name and .school domain, email address, but it's maintained by the school. Okay. And that's for a very specific reason. So if I want to ask for emails of a certain board member, I should be able to get those emails from that certain board member, because those are on the school server, which they can't, by law, they can't destroy those files or, do anything. In Edmond, every single board member has a private Gmail address. And when I was asking, I was in a dialogue with the school's attorney, and he told me that he can't provide me. I can't get the school board member emails because they're on private devices with private email addresses. They're not maintained by the district. That's another thing right there that needs to be addressed, is every single one of these people that has anything to do with public decisions, they need to be accountable and have public email addresses that we can, ask and query for data. That is a major no-no in my opinion when it comes to this school district. It's just another way they're kind of getting around things. Right. It's just wrong. It's just wrong on every single level when you're trying to ask for information.
Yeah. So when you said you talked about the parents group, are you talking about ROPE, or are you talking about like a parents voice group?
No, I'm just talking about
like earlier when you were involved.
Yeah.
You just have a small group of parents. It's not.
It's not small. This is just a large group of parents that all came together during my campaign.
Okay.
And they're all citywide. This is a citywide group of parents, and it's not even, we don't have organized meetings. We're just all in private groups, and we talk amongst each other.
Okay.
And so that's what that
parents'
group
voice is done. I would just, because you're talking a lot about transparency, and I think that's so important here. And I want to keep in mind that the one thing you have with a public school is the ability to lobby the board, right? You have the ability to lobby the board. You have the ability to gain records requests. And this is something I want everyone to think about when it comes to private schools, because these things happen in private schools and you don't know about them because they have no duty. They have no duty to report that. And so if we go down the school choice route, which I think has some merit, by the way, it has merit, but you lose a lot of that transparency that you're talking about in getting these records, right? Because you'd never be able to get that. And so all the tools that you've used to get this information are available because you elect these people. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's, I think you have exemplified what parents need to do in order to clean up the public schools that we have right now. And that has to be a part of this process. If it's not a part of this process, we're going to be in trouble, because most of the kids are still going to go to public schools, no matter what bill we pass to do, a school choice issue. And I know that's something Rope and Jenny talk about a lot, but it's, if someone, last question, and I don't know if you answered this, but if someone's wanting to start the process of getting records, can you just tell us how to do that?
Well, the easiest thing to do first is just to go to ROPE's website, the rope2.org website. I have a little section on there with with multiple examples, but you're just basically, ultimately what I would do is first, just to not be aggressive in asking for records. The very first thing I would do is just email the superintendent or the communication director or the teacher, whoever you're trying to get records from in the first place, and just say, hey, I would like to get a copy of, your emails or this subject, or, whatever the overarching, subject matter is. So you just email them first and ask. Okay. And you just see how they respond. Maybe they respond, maybe they don't respond. So then we would go through more official channels by creating a document that you could just take the template right off the webpage,
And I just posted the website for everybody so they can see.
So you can just take it right off of there and get the Title 51 and, just copy that top text, type in there whatever you want. But, you can get their email, you can get their internet history. Wouldn't you like to see, these administrators, are they actually looking up, study, that was my deal during Corona. I want to see how much time these administrators were actually spending on their own, looking up different studies, or, searching searching terms, or, whatever it is.
You can get their internet history?
Yes. That
Wow.
Their internet history.
That is interesting. I didn't know that. So yeah, so you can see what the administrators are looking up in terms of the policies and all of that. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to, and you'd be surprised, some of them spend a lot of time on the internet. Some don't spend much time, but, a lot of them are just looking at, achievements or news postings, about the school or this, but it's important to see what they're actually typing in their search history, ask for their search history, get their internet history, get their calendars, see who they're actually meeting with, see who they're talking to, see how their day is spent. Any other thing that has to do, if it's sports related, we've sent in requests to coaches about certain stuff or treatment of certain kids. I've helped a ton of people, try to get some answers. And it's only because, the very first route is to be very civil and just ask, either in person or through email, just ask, what you're looking for initially. Then if they start, blocking you and, giving you the runaround, then we start going more official channels, and anybody can contact me. My information's on the ROPE website. I've got a cell phone on there and an email. I'm happy to help people, but I've helped just people query their public libraries, query city council. Get your city councilman's emails. You want to see what your city councilmen are doing? Get their emails, see how they talk to people. When they respond back to people that aren't necessarily, agree 100%, you can see real fast how good a city councilman you got by getting their emails.
Yeah.
Obviously they're not going to have internet history and things like that because they're not spending their time up there. But you get their internet. You get their emails, and you see, and it's just, and that's just how you keep these people accountable. You just,
but that is what we have in government. That everybody talks bad about government, but I just want to make this point that local government is the way it was supposed to be. That's federalism. That is, the federal government and your local school district are two very different entities, or should be, right? That's why we need to try to get federal money out of the schools and those federal ties. But what you just talked about here, down to getting all this information down to their internet history, down to their emails, down to what they say about students behind the scenes, is only available because of the fact that it's your local government and you voted these people in. And correct. Those are incredible tools that I don't think we've utilized. I don't think we've utilized enough.
No one utilizes those. And I remember the very first report I did, I was thinking, am I wrong to even be asking these questions and try to, am I going to get in trouble for, sending this in? But, ultimately, you can eat anything that's public or gets, public money, in my opinion. I don't care who they are. I'll just send them a request. Maybe they reply. Maybe they don't reply. Usually their attorneys do. But, your state health department, your county health departments, all those, anything that has to do with making public decisions, you need to just constantly
get that information.
Get that information.
Man, if we had an army of parents who were dedicated to doing that 2 hours a day, you know what I mean? If we had 100 parents, 2 hours, 5 hours a week, to where they're just pulling information electronically so it can be searched through, and somebody who could put that information into a database, kind of like WikiLeaks, and just keep that going. Yeah, man, we would have a treasure trove of any time a situation like this came up. to where we would have, because information is power, right? And man, you've opened up my eyes a little bit here about how we as parents can fight back.
Yeah, well, let me tell you what they do. This isn't so much at the city level or state level. I mean, I've even sent in record requests, to the CDC, to these bigger organizations, just for basic, information and data. But here's what they do at the school level. I'm just going to tell all parents. They will try to get around every possible deal, cite, hey, this juvenile file, this, that. You have to just keep asking, reword the question multiple times, send in multiple, they're going to deny you until you finally get, the proper sequence. But I guess, are we still on here? I think something happened. I'll just hang out here for a second.
All right, I don't know what happened there.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. I felt like Dean Blevins there for a second. Camera's still rolling.
I think Putin knocked us off because he didn't like what you were saying or something. It's probably the CIA or something. No,
yeah. Here's what they do. Yeah, here's what they do at the schools. In Edmond Public School, after I sent in, 100 different record requests, all of a sudden, and they put me off for a long time, and I would put in some stuff that was real easy, for them to get, and it is funny what they actually give you and they don't give you, and you really have to keep track of, what they, that they give you what you ask for. But in Edmond last year, they put in a policy to charge exorbitant fees to ask for records now. They've got $125 an hour for IT. They've got, this record, and all that is against, it's all against the state statute. I mean, this is just their local policy. I mean, honestly, I feel like it applies to me about as much as the wash your hands sign in a bathroom at a Taco Bell. That's about how much it really applies to me. But that they use that as their front to not provide you the documentation. I mean, there's multiple times already where, hey, I'll get a call from the superintendent or, whoever. They'll say, hey, Michael, these last record, that you request, that's going to be $750, or it's going to be $200, or it's going to be $35, or it's going to be this or that. It's just a deterrent. But we have got to find someone here in this state that can help parents actually have some pushback legally against these schools, because this is what these school districts do all over the place. I've heard of parents in other school districts that have paid $1,000 to get emails of something to do with their kids or some situation. I mean, that's happened here in Oklahoma.
That's ridiculous. And see, there should be some kind. I imagine that's already illegal, and it's sad that we have to go in. Okay, so now ask the legislature to spend more taxpayer money, more taxpayer time to explicitly state something that is probably already illegal. And they do that just because so what you're saying though, is that if you just say, no, I'm not going to pay the money, I still want the information, you're likely still going to probably get the information.
Well, you just have to keep pushing back against them. You just don't quit. You just say, I want the information.
I think that would be a point where you actually do call your local legislator. Right. Yeah. I mean, if you call your state rep or your state senator and you say, this is what my school is doing. They demanded I get, $750 for these emails. And, somebody like Shane Jett calls them and goes, excuse me? You know what I mean? Like that's what your representatives are for in that kind of situation, I believe, is to say, look, I represent this district and you're doing something here. You're trying to charge a parent for information that they've already paid for. Why? Because they pay taxes to your school. So take it off their bill, take it off their tab. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of legislators that would openly get involved in a situation like that.
Yeah. Well, and I need to expand on one more thing. This is a double-edged sword. What we have found out, especially in Edmond, is the school, there's other parents, that don't like me or other parents in my group. Well, those parents themselves have seen what we've done with open records, and we don't ever request any kind of record that has to do with another parent or child.
Right.
We request about the decision processes and the information of the officials, the administrators themselves or the board members. Well, we have parents now in Edmond that are doing open record requests, requesting my personal emails to my board member, or my personal emails to the superintendent, or my wife's personal emails, or other parents, and they're doing hit jobs on us, and the school is not redacting, my information, my name, my email address, the information about my kids. They're just releasing, because it's like they want me to feel some pain. So, that's a whole nother thing that's coming that needs to be addressed by the legislator or whoever's going to, bring this. Is you've got school districts releasing private citizens, private communications, to a teacher or to an administrator or to a board member, without redacting, that private information that's in there.
So I guess the case would be made there that, well, because you sent an email to a public institution, therefore your private information is public, which is backwards, to be honest. I mean, that doesn't make any sense because you're not a public official. And
exactly.
And if you're going to redact pronouns, okay, I mean, if you're going to redact somebody's pronouns, whether they're a juvenile or not, I mean, you could say he and she or them and they, if they want to throw that in there, and not identify at all who the student is. You know what I mean? And but when you have somebody's personal email, like your email has your identifying characteristics in it, as your company name or your name in it, even. That could be very dangerous. So you're all right. That is something they need to think about.
Well, and just one more caveat to that. When you go above the school board level of documents being released, okay, when you go to the state level or you go to the county level or you go up, to where you've got an institution that handles more of these, they will redact the email address and the name of anyone that's not a public person in those requests.
A public employee. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. But what you're saying is that the schools or the officials that have been doing this have been sending out your private information and not redacting that. That's ridiculous.
My name's on there. My wife's name's on there. The conversation about my child, is on there. And it's all just done in spite to try to, hurt me or hurt them. And, it's just, but those things need to be addressed because going forward, if we're going to revamp this entire process and the way they try to block us and the way they try to charge us and the release of the information, there needs to be a pretty clear uniform way that this information is going to be agreed upon and released, in the future.
Right. Well, and that would say, okay, we keep the pronouns, but we redact the names. We redact the private citizens' information. But using he, she, and those kinds of situations, I think should be perfectly okay. And so it seems like we lack common sense, man. It seems we lack a level of just a value system that says, hey, this is simple. We give the information that's necessary, and we redact the private information of the parents involved. But you're right. Anytime you introduce a fix to a complex system, you're going to have these issues that pop up. And I think it's these conversations, what you're doing with your group, with the parents that you're doing this with, and with ROPE, that shine a light on this for the legislators that are trying to fix the problem the best they can, to fix these issues as they come up, because that's all we can do, right? So, well, Michael, thank you so much. No, go ahead. Say what we're going to say.
Well, I was just going to say, just real quick before we close out.
You go ahead.
As a parent, we're not against public school in any capacity. We want the best public schools, but we send our kids to school for academics. That's why we send them there. We don't send them for all the emotional, all the social stuff, everything else. They're going to learn that when they, they're going to come into their own when they're adults, out of school, living their own life, So
it's also the parents' job. to teach a kid how to emotionally, like it's your job to teach your kids values. That's and so when they talk about social emotional learning, what that leads to is social emotional control, because what it says is that they have to adopt, well, it's okay for boys to be in the girls' bathroom because they identify as a girl today. That is what they mean by social emotional learning, is saying, well, that doesn't feel right, but my feeling about it should be trumped by this moral philosophy.
Yeah.
And well, if a parent or parents are trying to teach their kids a different moral philosophy, like, no, daughter, you should not be okay with a boy being in the bathroom with you where you're doing private things. If you feel that that is a danger to you, you should say something. It's like, back in the day, we used to get the stranger danger, or, that's what we used to teach kids, is that if you feel uncomfortable in this situation, that's when you say something. But now social emotional learning is actually flipping that on its head. And this situation in Edmond is a clear example of that, because I pointed this out with Jenny yesterday, is that the girls here didn't express any concern about this boy being in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Which led
it's commonplace.
Yeah, it's commonplace. So that's social emotional learning visible in this situation, which the first step should have been, why are you in my bathroom? Get out. And if all the girls in the bathroom would have said, get out, you probably wouldn't have had the situation. Get out, or I'm going to tell the teacher. Get out, or I'm going to tell the principal, right? And I mean, let me just put it this way. Teenage boys, I'm sure, would love to go into a girls' locker room right? Any day of the week, right? That would be something, but they don't, because there's a consequence for that. Well, if you've now given them a loophole around the consequence by saying, I'm going to throw on a skirt today, right? It gives unnecessary opportunities for abuse that can lead to this kind of danger. And that is all done, for everyone that wants to know. That's all made possible because of social emotional learning. It really is.
Well,
and
let's fast forward just 5 or 10 years. You've got all these kids now that have grown up like this. It's all okay. It's all, there's no issue. Well, now those are the same people that are going to identify as a 14-year-old girl, and they can go in the bathrooms again now.
Right.
It's just setting up an entire institution of pedophilia, to where you're going to have adults now identifying as children or identifying as whatever, to go, come right into the circumstance of taking away the innocence of a kid.
Well, and I've always said this: progressivism progresses. You know what I mean? That is 10 years ago when gay marriage became illegal, and I'm not going to talk about that as a good or a bad. What I'm saying is that when it became legal, all of the institutions that were promoting gay marriage and making money off of that lost their reason to exist. So what they have to do, they had to find another social issue along the same lines in order to justify their continued making money off of social issues. And that's how progressivism progresses. And 10 years ago, we would have said, 15 years ago, let's put it at that. We're going to have a problem 15 years later, boys getting in girls' locker rooms and bathrooms, which I just did a story on a couple of girls in, I think it was Vermont or Connecticut, where they were disallowed to be in their own locker room because one transgender boy, a male, was in there and caused a stir and a ruckus about it.
Wow. And
so they didn't feel comfortable with him being in, so they got removed from the space and he got to keep it. And that's so the best girls are boys now. Where's women's rights in all of this? This is how progressivism progresses. This is how, and so what you're describing in terms of adults maybe identifying as younger than they are seems absolutely beyond the pale right now. But what you just said was 10 years later, it's obvious we could go there. It's obvious we could go there.
That'll probably be a legal defense in a courtroom at some point in time.
Oh my Lord. And that is critical theory, by the way. When you hear about critical race theory being a subset of law or constitutional law, critical race theory or critical legal studies is the manipulation of language to make the argument that you just said would probably be made in 10 years is that because they identify as younger than they are, or because they identify as something other than what their biological sex says they can be, the language gets changed in the law, and you've effectively changed the law without actually amending the law because you've changed the definition of the language.
Yeah.
And that's what's being instituted in our schools right now. Is that mindset. They call it critical thinking. It's not like you and I thought of critical thinking. Who, what, when, why, how, and where, and all of that. That's not what it is. No, it's looking at things through this critical lens, which basically means we're going to change the definition of the words. And you're going to accept the definition of those words being, I mean, you just saw it the other day on the internet. I don't know if you heard about this. They changed the definition of the man and woman on one of the biggest dictionary sites. They changed the definition of the word racism during the George Floyd thing. Just
wow.
They clicked their fingers and it was done. And that's what your kids are imbibing. And so, Julia C here, who is your political director at ROPE, she said, it's government versus the people. But here's the problem. This is supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So we can't abandon our government. If we abandon our government, we lose. We lose. And so what Michael here is doing to everybody listening is he's giving you a playbook. He's giving you an example of how every parent, if we had 50 parents doing this 2 hours a week, getting all this information, it would change the game. It would change the whole process. So, Michael, thank you so much for all of your work. Thank you for bringing this to light and for everything you're doing to help keep parents informed, to help keep parents empowered and reclaim that empowerment. You're an inspiration, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. Happy to be in the fight. And it all just comes down to giving these kids the same type of education, and opportunities that we had. I don't want to strip these kids of their innocence before, they even get to experience it. I just feel like we're in a fight for the mind of our kids, because where their mind goes, ultimately, that's where their heart and who they are as a person, that's where they're going to go. So, I mean, it's just important to me on every level.
Yeah. Well, you're doing an amazing job, and I cannot thank you enough. And I know that there are parents out there that are seeing you right now and have seen you in the fight, that, you help give them courage. And it's guys like you that we need. So everybody go to ROPE and look up the information that he has on, I posted the website on the chat. But I'm going to let him go because he's got to go actually do his real job. And we'll see. So thank you, everybody. Like, subscribe, share this episode so everybody can see what Michael talked about today. And we'll get this information out and keep it going. Thank you, Michael. And we'll see everybody later.
Thank you.